Okay, so the cruel death of George Floyd last week under the knee of a Minnesota police officer shook the whole world. These incidents of police brutality against Black people are a regular occurrence. The video evidence put this horrific event on record for the whole world to see. What followed was a world in uproar. Over these past 2 weeks, we have seen Black Lives Matter protests across the whole globe, demonstrating that these aren't incidents that are happening far away in the US, but they're happening to Black people everywhere. It may seem that racism will never come to an end and that the damage it has wreaked upon the world is unrepairable. But there is always hope. People continue to fight and stand up for what is right. So our question for today is, what does an anti-racist society look like?
Cool.
So to start off, let's just introduce ourselves.
Wait, where's Nehanda gone?
Huh?
Good.
Me? Okay, Nehanda. Okay. Hi, my name is Nehanda. I'm a trailblazer. I used to be a youth ambassador. Now, yeah, I'm a trailblazer.
Ishola.
I'm just Ishola. Yeah, I'm just Ishola. I'm Ishola. I'm part of Babbasa's mentoring mentee program, and I have been blessed to come on here and discuss this very sensitive topic with the beautiful lot of Nehanda, Stara, and Elysse.
Lovely. And I'm Elysse. I'm a Babbasa Trailblazer, and yeah, I've completed the first youth ambassador program, and yeah, now I'm and the mentor mentee program, and yeah, now I'm a trailblazer working on stuff next to my But yeah, cool.
All right, so now that we've introduced ourselves, let's move on to the first question. So guys, what do you think an anti-racist society is?
I think an anti-racial society is a society where everyone is able to get the same opportunities. Everybody is able to work together without being discriminated against, and being able to work together without any problems.
Does everyone agree with that?
I guess, to be honest, I think an anti-racist society is one where, it's not just Black people and people of color who are fighting for their, fighting for their justice, basically. It's one in which we're not segregating ourselves from the rest of the population. Like, we're coming together, and we're not just, having to, it's in, what's the term now? It's easy to say, yeah, I wish that everything was equal and racism didn't exist. And I don't think for a long time it, will completely be eradicated. But if we can work towards that, I think that's kind of where you start with an anti-racist society, is with awareness. Yeah. And a need to make things better by everyone.
Anti-racist society is a society where we see no color and just see everyone as the same as ourselves. So, like it says in the Bible and the Quran, we all created in God's image. So that way we are all the same, just the same.
That's true. So the next question is, what do you think drives racism in the UK?
I believe it is the hatred and the fear of Black and colored people. And I think it's obviously because people are feared and are scared of us, you're going to separate yourself from that group of people in order to, be on top of them, or to put them down. I mean, either way. And it's also because, over recent years, over many, many years, we're starting to open up our voice and we're starting to stand up for what we believe in, even though we have many people, for example, like Nelson Mandela, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, that have set like a basis foundation of us, like where we are now. We are starting to raise a voice, and the people are like, whoa, like, what happened here? Like, I thought we had all the power. So then they're just getting, quiet, and then they're just like, oh, we need this power back, So that's what I believe.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that the drive for racism in the UK, I just think the main drive for it is just historically driven from back in, times of slave trade. Even when slave trade was over, there was still that divide between Black people and white people. I think when white people lost control of Black people in the slave trade, I think that is when racism really did spark, because, now there were free people, free to live a life without, their control. And I think there was sort of like a nastiness and, a dislike to see Negroes doing bits with their lives, not under the control of the white men. So I think that's kind of been like, as much as racism has really dampened down overtly, is it overtly? Yeah, overtly, there is still covert racism there. It's just not as obvious. It's not as direct, because direct racism is very socially unacceptable, but that doesn't stop some people from doing that. And I think other people are just more, I guess, low-key about it. So like when it comes to like microaggressive behavior, that's kind of how it evolves and like comes out. But yeah, I think.
I believe what drives racism in the UK is the structure of society. Regardless of what you're taught or how you're brought up, from childhood, from reception, from school, there's always a system in place that seems to put certain individuals ahead or away from others, and that grows over time, and it gets to a stage where you get to like secondary school, and you have an educational system that divides people based on their performance. And one thing you notice is the groups that have been divided that are deemed underperforming are usually those of BIM culture, and that is not, it's not something we ourselves directly look at and think, what, we are being racist or whatever. It's just been ingrained in us to think that certain color people are not capable of performing as well as others. So as you grow up and as you go through the system, you go to uni, you go to college, you go to uni, you enter workplace, it's been ingrained in you that, some people are better than you, or you're better than some people. So it's just the way the system is. It's just the structure. So it has to be right from the ground up, from right from the ground up. So from home and from school, from reception, kindergarten, whatever you want to call it. It's just being ingrained in us that we are different, and that's why food drives racism.
All right, so Nehanda, earlier you said that you think that people are scared of us, which is why they're racist. So like, in what way are they scared of us, do you think?
Well, I honestly think that they're too comfortable. Well, they weren't really comfortable in the position that they were in. I mean, we over like 400 plus years of slavery, and to change it in such a dramatic way, and all of a sudden that brown people are now having voices, they're gonna get scared, because if you're used to something for many, many years, and all of a sudden things are changing, you're gonna get mad. You're gonna get scared. You'll be like, what's going on? Like, you need to fight it. And that's when people are starting to divide, because we obviously want what we want, and they want what they wanted or what they had before, you know. So that's, you know, the separation there. I mean, honestly, they're scared, and you know what? That's a good thing, because you know it shows that, you know, we're doing our job and we're, you know, we're doing our work. Because, you know, if they were scared, they'll be still, you know, running over us. You know, they're still treating us like rubbish. You know, even though it still happens now. I mean, we're working towards like a better place for everyone in this world, not just, you know, Black people, but, you know, a place where everyone can work together and, you know, be a good place. So yeah.
Yeah, that linked nicely with what Ishola was saying about the idea of control. So you guys think that we need like new structures put in place? And like what kind of structure do you think should be put in place in society?
I don't know, that's a tough one, because it's like, I think we as people of color, we kind of like, we know what we want to change, but we don't really know how to start. So I think we have ideas, but generally we haven't really solidified like a way in which we can kind of just be like, okay, if they did this, this, and this, then I'll be happy, and then things will be better for Black people. But it runs a lot deeper than that, because it's something that's gone on for years. Racism is learned behavior. Like they say, nobody is born racist, and people who are racist become racist as part of it's part of the environment that they're in. You know, it's a nurture approach. And even though others are not directly brought up racist, there are behaviors in which they'll see people of their race and how they behave towards people of color, and that's gonna leave an impression on them in order to kind of, you know, make them behave a certain way. I could go on and on about psychological theories, but that's just long. So let's keep it basic. It's the behaviorist approach. You should Google it. So yeah, in order for us to kind of like, first of all, tackle the problems that are present in society, we need to break down and pinpoint what the problems are. And once we realize what the problems are, we've got to figure out what are the causes. And then after that, how are the problems generated? And then how do we change that afterwards? I think that's still going to be a long process to, you know, kind of tackle, especially when it comes to like racist behavior, racist attitudes, and racist views. So it's actually something I'm working on at the moment, doing some research and whatnot. But there's no simple, straight answer to it. We have to understand the cause in order to solve the problem, to try and then find a solution to reverse it. But it's not straightforward. And so that's why I think it's gonna take a while for us to really pinpoint. There's not gonna be any immediate, you know, like effects that we're gonna see. I mean, what we're seeing now is, I guess the first step is like, we are now, if you compare it to the Black Lives Matter movement in 2016 compared to now, like, you know, back in 2016, everyone was just like, but all lives matter. No. Yeah, but all lives matter though. But now you're seeing more white people who are like, hold up, this ain't cool. And I think it's because they've merely, you know, I don't know if you guys go to church, but like they said this year was the year of seeing clearly. 2020 is the year of vision and seeing clearly. And I think finally now, people are now seeing things for how they actually are, as opposed to before when they were remaining ignorant to it. And ignorance is bliss. So honestly, like, I get it. You're happier. It's easier for you to just be in your little cloud of everything's fine. Race doesn't exist. I'm colorblind. It's easy to do that. But the reality is that the reality for them is not the same reality for us, you know? And I remember having that same debate with somebody in sixth form about, and their exact words were, if we just stop talking about racism won't exist anymore. So yeah, and that's a real testament to like the views of white people back then as opposed to now. Not all white people, that's just generalizing, but yeah, a lot of them.
That's good. Because what you're saying is like racism's sort of learned, right? Like racism is a learned behavior.
Learned behavior.
So do you think like it happens in institutions like education? Because on the live earlier, we were talking about like how there's not enough Black teachers in schools and they're not getting promotions, they're not in the higher positions. So what is your guys' like view? Like Nehanda, what's your view about Black teachers and how they're treated in education?
Like I said before on the live, that there is a lot of teachers that are on the ground level. Like from my school, there was not much. Well, I think only like 1 or 2 Black teachers, like that actually teaching lessons, and there was many SLTs, like houses, head of houses and that. And I honestly think that's strange, but I will never understand why there is never like enough Black teachers, mainly because people need guidance. Head of houses, support workers are not enough. You can't just be having one Black person name her the person that you go to when you have a problem, when you should be comfortable going to any teacher in your school and saying that, oh, I have a problem, there's a racist problem, like I don't feel comfortable. Like you shouldn't have to be forced into one particular person because she's the only Black person in your school. Like that's actually ridiculous. And people are getting too comfortable with white teachers, and I can see that's not it's not the way to go, because they're gonna start walking over you. And I've seen that from like my school as well. They've started to walk over you, disrespect you, and they think that's okay because they have the other white teachers supporting them, because they know that the Black teacher that are supporting us like mentally are separated from the actual teachers.
Yeah, I agree with that actually. Like I've seen that too in my schools growing up. Like so you can see that especially when I was in sixth form, you'd see that the white students would have this whole like basically kind of like a friendship with the teachers. You know, I was a hardworking student. I didn't always get things right, but I tried. And the connection that I had, or relationship I had with my teachers, was just not the same. It was not on the same level as my teachers had with the white students. And even growing up throughout my educational history, not all of them were like that, but certain ones you could definitely see, like, okay, you've got like this banterous, like, you're clearly like one of the favorites in the classroom. And I know I'm not, but it's okay. Yeah, you could see that kind of like manifest in front of you. So yeah, it's pretty sad. It's like, why can they have that and we can't, type of situation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, no one time, you guys. We have to bring in our Pokey's gonna join us. Yeah. Yeah. We have to bring in Poku.
Hey, Poku.
So,
The sound always on mute. There we go.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, while we wait, our Pokey's gonna. Oh. What's happening? Oh, wait.
Wait, the sound went all funny.
It was on mute.
Oh, he's on mute now. Pokey, we can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting conversations.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure hearing you guys. I didn't realize that I was going to be locked in. And before I realized, I could see my face on it. And I thought, oh, I'm probably in there. How you guys doing?
We're good, man.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Good. So do you guys have any questions for me?
Yeah, like, obviously Babbasa, we know it's, you aim to help people from, less advantaged backgrounds in society, and that typically tends to be people from BAME backgrounds. So what is it that you think that us as youth ambassadors, trailblazers, etc., what do you think we can do to then influence our society and our generation into an anti-racist society?
I can give some suggestions, but ultimately, I think there were some of the things that you guys were already talking about, as in some of the things that I certainly caught you guys talking about in terms of what you think needs to happen. I think the first and foremost, I often hear that, racism is a thing of the past, or is something to do with my sort of parents' generation and it doesn't exist again. So I think even having talk shows like this and letting other individuals and institutions and businesses recognize that actually this is something that is still happening even for your generation, it's powerful. Because then it's not someone trying to make a case for any of you guys. You guys are making the case of how you feel and how you feel being treated and how it's making you feel in terms of be it self-belief or your self-worth or feeling like a human. So I think just letting your voice heard through whatever the medium that you guys do have will certainly be one thing to do. And I guess the second thing is that, we all know that at times, even if some young people are as articulate as they come, many a times when it's a question of facing the crowd or coming in front of the camera, and when I was your age, I don't know whether I would have been able to step to the camera like how you guys have. So I think there is almost like a second, maybe a bit more of a responsibility for guys like yourself who can stand up for other young people, to do so and bring those young people along as well to let them know that it's okay. And those young people could be your younger sisters, it could be your neighbors, it could be obviously people that you don't know, but if you see any sense of injustice, helping to equip them and to be able to also speak their truth. The third thing that you can do, which I think will be something a bit more pragmatic from my point of view, is that even though it's an unequal world, it's still a democratic world that we live in. So there's absolutely nothing stopping any of you guys, for example, that if you were to see any form of unjust behavior or unfair behaviors, that you take a pen and a paper and then you write to your principals, you write to your headmasters, you write to your, not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily say that the teacher that is perpetrating the abuse, that if it was you had a conversation with a counselor, with an officer, that that you still have the power to pick up a pen. It doesn't have to be a letter with all sorts of vocabularies. It can be as simple as it gets, just making yourself heard. Because normally once you put things on paper or in an email, then the other person or the recipient has got a responsibility to respond to it, especially if it could be perceived as, if it can be perceived as racism, or if it could be perceived as marginalizing someone else. And I think those things, many a times, we don't do enough, all of us. So certainly that's also something that we can do more of.
Okay, that's great. I had another quick question. I saw a post the other day about how somebody was stating how it's not up to us to teach white people about race, even though currently, there's loads of posts going around about you can watch this, you can read this, you can listen to this podcast to learn about, the stuff that we've been knowing for years that they're suddenly just waking up to. Do you think that is our responsibility or up to us to do that? Or is it kind of a case of we should just leave them to it?
No, I think we live in a society that, the simple answer is it shouldn't be anybody's primary responsibility to educate the other. So the example that I gave the last time, I was talking to a friend, and I was saying that if someone wanted to learn how to make a coffee, they're not going to necessarily call the they may not even call the coffee manufacturer to say that, how do I make my coffee? You know, they'll Google it. If someone wanted to find out how to play tennis, you know, they'll practice it. But somehow when it's a question of race, the labor, you know, more often than not is placed on the other, you know, the one that is experiencing or that is being oppressed to rather explain themselves and educate themselves. Now, I say I don't think it's the primary responsibility. And that's because I do also think that whether we choose to educate that person, or should I say share our knowledge with that person, or how it's making us feel with that person or not, I guess what we don't want to do is to leave that, can I call that person a perpetrator, to be doing it to other people. So whilst it's nobody's primary interest to do that, just because knowledge can be now sought on all sorts of grounds, internet, you know, all sorts. I do feel that if it's within your gift, you know, if you feel that the emotional labor is not too much, and if you feel that actually this person needs to learn, you know, use this, you know, take this as a learning opportunity, then I will say that don't let it pass, because we live in an ecosystem, and you wouldn't want that person doing it to your sister, brother, friend. So if there's an opportunity to plug that gap, then I will say that, you know, do it, so long as you feel that it's not too much of an emotional labor on you. So that's what I will say to that.
Just a quick touch on a couple points you made, Poku. Earlier you said about, you know, the idea that racism is something of the past or from the past, and also based on what, or at least asked, whose responsibility is it to educate others about racism. But one thing that I find funny is, although the spotlight is on us, racism to do with Black people, or BAME rather, it's funny because it goes both ways as well. It comes from perspective rather. Being brought up, especially by the older culture, or people from African or Afro-Caribbean backgrounds, we have been given this perception that white people are a certain way, or this is the way we're going to be treated, which in turn lets us, or allows us to react or begin to process how we're going to react to certain things, or how we're going to treat certain people. And, you know, it's funny that we all talk about trying to educate others about being treated equal, or about being anti-racist. However, do you feel like perhaps it's a lot to do with the perspective of ourselves as well? The situations where, I don't know, okay, let's talk about the school situation where a Black teacher isn't given promotion. In a school, you probably have maybe 2% of the staff being of the BAME community. What are the chances of that 2% getting promotion over the other 98%? You know, we don't tend to look at things literally. As soon as something like that happens, we see that a white person's getting a promotion over someone of BAME culture or of the BAME community. We start to jump on the bandwagon that it's something to do with race. However, we don't take time to sort of look at other factors. So do you feel like at times it's our perspective that affects the way we see situations, and, you know, quickly judge it as a racist situation?
I think, I mean, if you're talking about racist situations, then it means that there's something that has happened. And what makes it a racist situations is either it's the way that the other makes you feel, isn't it? If they intentionally or unintentionally make you feel less of a human being, or dehumanize you in the process, or makes you feel that you shouldn't be in the space, be it intellectual space or physical space, as them, because of your color, isn't it? So it would mean that something would have happened. But if you're generally saying that not every can I use the word misfortune, should be labeled as racism if it's got to do with, you know, a white and a black characters in that situation, then absolutely, then absolutely. But you see, I think that is also learned behavior on both sides. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, without going into too much detail. So the let's put it this way: if you honestly feel, if it's a way, it's a feeling, isn't it? If you do feel that that person that person engaged in that situation with you, it's making you feel less than what you feel you need to be feeling, then you have absolute right to voice that out, right? You may be wrong or you may be right. And maybe just to simplify the point and say that, but does it mean that in every situation that constitutes, or should I say, have got a black and a white person, you know, sort of interacting? If one way or the other, it doesn't go to the benefit of the black person, do we say that that's racism? I don't agree that that's racism. Just to stop me tipping into too much detail, I don't agree that it's always racism, but racism does play a major factor in our relationship when it comes to white and black. And it also happens through colorism as well. So it's not just when the person is a Caucasian and the other is a black. You know, you talked about coming from an African descent. You know, even it could be, obviously colorism is slightly a separate subject, but nevertheless is related. Someone said that it's like the twin. We all know that at times, if someone is light skinned, then, you know, depending on the shade, you know, or the hue of that person, you get it either ways, irrespective of that person coming from the same heritage background. And for me, all that needs to be rooted out, you know, all that, because if we are really to look at fulfilling our potentials on earth as individuals, but also as any society, then what's the need for racism in the first place? What's the need for colorism in the first place? So that's how I'll say it.
So do you think we kind of need to tackle our own racial biases within our community, as well as outside of our community as well?
I think so. I think if we don't, then we're leaving the conversation. Then we'll be missing out the nuances in conversation. Not only that, it means that we will struggle to coexist as a society or as individuals, because the world is so intrinsically linked, and any community is intrinsically linked. You know, your family doesn't have to be the one that, I don't know, threw the rubbish, you know, the rubbish at the back of the next house for it to become news and for it to affect, you know, the property prices in that area. Neither do you have to be the one having COVID for all of us to start to stay at home in a totally different country. So I think we are so intrinsically linked, and we are in an ecosystem that depend on each other. So, and if it's true that racism in itself is a disease and it's a learned behavior, then it also means that even as Black people or brown people, when we start to grow and we get fed by the media negative portrayals by the media that, you know, our shade of color is bad, or we get fed that actually, well, not even anybody telling us, but if we find that actually people of our kind don't tend to go to this area, or don't tend to listen to this music, or don't tend to do this or that, it means that one way or the other, we also internalize some of that. So it's also equally up to us as individuals to learn and recognize that for ourselves. It's not everybody that can become a psychologist, but certainly learning about yourself shouldn't be about even academia, and learning about your history. So yeah, that's what I will say to that.
Great, thank you.
Nehanda, do you think that there's a big burden put on people of color right now?
I can say yeah, because obviously the recent situation and how people are, you know, are reacting to this, we are put now in a position that now we need to build our community in order to get our reason, or what we're trying to get around. We have what we're trying to get around to everyone else. So I do feel there's a lot of pressure, but I feel like we needed this, to be honest, because there's lots of people that are trying to stand up for this, like even before this happened, and I feel like this is the push that we needed in order just to like turn the light switch on. I think it was said before that it was like this year was the year to what was it?
I think she said enlightenment.
Yeah, and I feel like that's exactly what this situation did, was enlighten people and like in order to do what we have to do. So I don't know if it's much pressure, but in more motivation. So I'm kind of like torn between the two, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, Poku, do you think that this burden put on people of colour is fair, or do you think it's quite unfair?
I think I would say it's unfair, just because there are so many different means that people can learn for themselves, rather than that, oh, if it's not working here because you're the only Black person, tell it all of a sudden, tell us everything that we need to do, work out all the strategies for the organization to get better. I don't think that is fair. Stara, I think someone is behind you. So I don't think that's fair. But having said that, knowledge and understanding happens in all sorts of ways, isn't it? At times we can be in school and the teacher can spend 3 hours teaching us something and it's still not going in. And we meet our friend for 2 minutes and they said, oh yeah, they go like, that's what they were trying to say. Now I do understand it. Now, if that as a principle is true, then we should also know that it could be that someone even goes online, reads all about institutional racism, endemic racism, systemic racism, or all the isms, right? But still doesn't get it. And it may take you, Stara, for them to ask you a question and for you to just smile, and which then opens up their mind a bit more, isn't it? And for you to say one word, for them to start to think. Now, that's not saying that, we should take it on. I think what I'm trying to say is that it's subjective and it's on an individual basis. And if you're already feeling labored, then you should let that person know that actually, I'm not feeling it right now. How about you Google and let them know. I think the thing that I try, and I've often said that the woke, being woke, and sort of wokeism, if I can put it as such, is something that I as an individual I struggle with, because I think it doesn't allow so much for nuance, and it doesn't allow for kindness, and it doesn't allow for empathy. And I think it was it Ishola, you said it yourself with what you said earlier on, that I do think that because we're living in an ecosystem, if we cut out kindness, we cut out empathy, we cut out the basis that it's all your problem, and you deal with it, I think we also can lose an element of allyship with that. If I say allyship, you guys know what I mean. The idea, because we're 4% or under 4%, the Black population in the UK. So if there is going to be a momentous change, we all know that it will be hard because we don't have that privilege. The system hasn't afforded Black people generally that privilege, so it will be hard. So what we do need is allies, allies from not just the white community, but from other ethnic minority backgrounds, to lift up the voice and help bring about the change that we do need. So yeah, I do caution against people who totally cut out, other people, but also do take the point that you just made, Stara, that we have to be careful not to feel responsible for, for doing the work for other people.
That was some good points. But now we're going to bring in Asha Craig. She's going to join us to answer questions. Is she doing? Okay. Okay, while we wait, we're going to do a little call of action.
Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, hang on. I'm just going to get this up. So let's talk a bit about Babbasa. So Babbasa is an organization that is here to help the youth in many aspects of life. So if you feel like you've been affected by anything that we're talking about, or you feel like you need help in any way, you could contact Babbasa and they will help you. So I do encourage everyone to go and check out Babbasa. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello.
Oh.
Hi. Sorry.
Oh,
Hi.
Apologies. I was trying to get this to work and it couldn't. Sorry. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Are you ready for me?
yeah, we are.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, let's start with a question from the public. So,
Oh, what? You're going straight in on me? All right. Come on then.
Oh wait, you could introduce yourself a bit first.
I think I should.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Councillor Asha Craig. I prefer to be called Asha. I am the Deputy Mayor of Bristol, and I'm also the Cabinet Lead responsible for communities, equalities, and public health. So everything that has been going on in the last 3-4 months, whether that's COVID, whether or not it's the disproportionate impact that COVID has had on our communities. Obviously, everything that happened on Sunday, because I've got arts and culture as part of my brief, and obviously equalities for all protected characteristics and none. So yeah, I'm in the thick of it at the moment. And I just got off the phone to someone where I said, I'm not apologizing for being who I am and being Black. Why should I shine my light? Why should I dim my light just because I am who I am? I'm going to stand up for the rights of Black people, whether they like it or not. I don't care who feels uncomfortable about it. It's our time now. You know, I feel the change happening. You know, I've got 3 daughters, you know, so I feel I've got my finger on the pulse because I know what's going on. I manage my youngest daughter's career. So I'm on the Instagram, I'm on the Snapchat, I'm seeing, listen, you young people, I keep telling everybody, and I'm not playing, you guys are the ones who are gonna, you know, I'm ready to hand the baton right across to you guys and roll with it, you know, because I've been doing this for a long time. And this is the first time I feel like change is really, the genie is out of the bottle and it can't get back in. It's as simple as that. And I think, as my children keep telling me, Mom, so many people got woke, Black and white, okay? Because remember, we've been denied our history, so we don't know what we don't know. And I think so many people have, just in this short period of time, a week, like, been consuming so much information and history. Even I'm learning about Leopold and what happened in the Congo. And yeah, listen, our history is dark. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on. But hey, sorry, that's me. So ask me a question. Sorry, I do get carried away sometimes.
Okay, we're gonna start. This is a question from the public. So this is from Carrie.
Okay, hi, Carrie.
Yeah, they're asking, how can we make this move? How can we make this moment in history the turning point when our own Prime Minister and other MPs don't support it?
Well, you know something, it may be our Prime Minister. He's not my Prime Minister, but unfortunately we're stuck with him. So you can go around him. So let me tell you the one thing that we're not doing in Bristol. One of the things that we always, you know, the United Kingdom is the most centralized, controlled country of all well, we're not in Europe anymore, but all of the European countries. So when I go to Europe, the mayors like Marvin, they have complete and utter control around the policies. They make it a bit like Sadiq. He can make decisions about transport, fund the police, all of that. Our powers of Marvin's powers and the powers of leaders is much more limited because of the centralization of power in Westminster. But that still doesn't stop us here in Bristol doing what we need to do to kind of fix things. So, for example, for example, the curriculum. We know that, you know, I've heard some horrific stories from my children this week telling me about what life was really like for them when they went to school and how the teachers treated them. And they said, Mum, we are grateful to you because you and Dad taught us about our history. So every time they were correcting the teachers or trying to put in theirs, the teacher would always try to kind of slam them down, etc. So what are we now doing in Bristol? We know it's important to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we need to, and so through our Commission on Race Equality, we've got Esther Deans, who is one of our race commissioners, and she is a teacher herself of Jamaican origin. She has been working with a group of Black teachers and Lawrence Hu from Cargo, and that we have designed the Bristol curriculum, and that curriculum it's just going to be amazing. So we're not waiting on the government to decide whether or not they're ever going to change the curriculum and bring it up to date. We've had the conversation with the schools here in Bristol that this needs to be done. The schools are signed up to it, and from September we're going to start rolling out a new curriculum within the schools so that everybody from primary to secondary understands who they are, what our history, what our story is. So that's kind of an example, but there's so many other things that we can do. But yeah, we've got to use what we have available to us here in Bristol. And you have a voice. Babbasa is a key voice. So we also have to ensure that we are interfacing with you, we are communicating with you. We're actually also co-producing some of the things that we want to see happening here in the city, including how do we tell the story and our legacy of Black and brown people who have made their mark here in the city. So yeah, there's a lot that can be done, but you know, Babbasa for me provides a platform for you as young people to have that interaction with myself, with Marvin and others. And we want you to be very much a part of it. I know you guys are bored of meetings. I mean, I know you don't like, you know, there are lots of meetings, but, you know, there's a lot of young people who are also very much now geared up. My daughter is, my youngest, she was woke, but she is completely, she's well and truly woke. I mean, she's eating. I know I sound really terrible because I'm not that young, but I'm learning from you young people. Yeah, she says, Mum, she says, you know, there are actions that she is personally going to be taking now, that is going and reading, informing herself and calling people out. She's not afraid anymore. You know, she was reciting times at school when she even felt ashamed or felt so bad to have to constantly correct people about her name, the teachers about her name. Her name is Zakia. It's not difficult, okay? But she said, Mum, for the 100th time, I just decided I would keep quiet. But, you know, it's been a cathartic process, everything that is happening at the moment, because it feels safe for people to be able to express who they are and what's been happening to them. And a lot of white people are sitting back and thinking, okay, they're trying to understand, you know, but it's not for us to teach.
Mm-hmm.
But we need the allies to put their shoulder to the wheel with us. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded, but yeah, I do get carried away. I'm a bit passionate at the moment. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, we are all very passionate right now.
Yeah, it is. No, it means so much to me because I've been doing this since I was 19 years old. You know, I took on that banner. You know, it was the St. Paul's riots that sparked my journey into the world of community activism and doing what is right for Black people who were being consistently, listen, I've been on it's like a mouse wheel. But like, it's taken for the murder of George Floyd, it took for that one incident turned the whole world upside down, I think, you know, because I think it spoke to people's humanity that you cannot, how can somebody who's supposed to protect you murder you in broad daylight? So yeah, it's had a real impact on many of us. And there will be some who are ignorant and will hide their head in the sand. But the vast majority of us, and particularly those as young people, we want you to be part of the journey that we're going on.
Yeah.
Sorry, any questions? Sorry.
Okay, I just want to say to the people watching, please send in questions that you want to be answered, and we will answer them. Please.
So one of the things I want to so while you're waiting for any questions to come through, so one of the things I do want to let you know is that about a year ago, over a year or so ago, we held a conference in the city called Race in the City. And I think some of the Babbasa ambassadors helped out at that event. But at the end of that event, myself and Marvin and a couple of other Black leaders, at the end of the conference, we just said, you know something, we've got to do more, you know, and it can't just be about Bristol. This has got to be, you know, because we are lucky, and I will not deny, regardless of what people want to say, we are very purposeful about the leadership that we have in the city. We don't have to think about being inclusive. It's just the mindset. That's how it is. If everybody kind of worked in that way, then maybe we would have less of the race hate and the problems that we have. But we are where we are. So it was really important for us to say, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to change the system? Because remember, racism is endemic, it's systemic, it is structural. It's like you have to bruck it all down and build it right back up again. It is the policies in our organizations that are holding us back. It is those inbuilt prejudices and biases that white people hold against us. Some of them is learned behavior, some of them, whatever. But I would say we have, I think in Bristol, because everyone talks about Bristol being really hip city and what have you, as hip as it is, we are still a city, a tale of two cities. We are still a divided city. There's a lot of work to be done, but I have been inundated. My inbox at the moment has been inundated by people, both Black and white, who have suddenly had a light bulb moment. They can never understand what it's like for us to be Black and on the receiving end, but I think that empathy is coming through. And so, but the question that you have to ask, because my daughter says to me, we don't care about the platitudes. We want to know, what are you going to do? So my daughter works in the makeup industry. They have all of the Black and makeup artists and others have called out all of the major makeup brands and companies. They gave them 72 hours to tell them how many Black people you had on your boards, how many Black staff that you have. They had to publish it, and they published it on Instagram. And then they've got to tell them, well, what are you going to actually do to make a difference? So it's been surprising, even for my daughter, to even learn, you know, how many, you know, from the Estee Lauders to Fenty to Kylie Jenner to all of them. It's been it's quite interesting to see, but that's what you need to do. You've got to push people. It's no good just saying this is what we look like. So what are you going to do to address that? You know, because you're selling your products to us, and actually, if we're going to continue to spend our money with you, we want to know that your business is truly diverse. So yeah.
Asha, sorry, just real quick.
Yeah.
The point you made. Do you consider it a win or a success if, due to the movements and the noise we're making right now, if we get quote unquote included because we're Black? Is that a win? Because the way I see anti-racism and equality is you getting the same opportunity as everyone else because you can, because someone believes in you, not because you're Black. So prior to this, we're not getting the same opportunities, or being treated differently because we're Black. But now we're going to be getting more opportunities.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Of course, there are opportunities. Everyone is going to be falling over themselves, you know. But be careful, okay? Because it's all too well and good employing somebody, but what have you done to change your policies and your processes and your systems and the culture of your organization that has led to you being where you're at? So it's not that easy. Just we'll employ a few more Black people. If when you employ those Black people, they are still going to be faced with the little micro racist aggressions and all the other stuff that is happening. So it's not that simple and straightforward. And again, you know, if I was going for an interview now, if I was applying for a job and going for an interview now, and when they ask me the question at the end, and what do you have to say? I want to know, what's your policies around equality and diversity? What are you doing to actually address the underrepresentation of BME people in your organization? What kind of policies do you have to ensure that you're being protected? Because again, even as a somebody working in an organization, there are still so many different kind of issues that you have to address, and I should know, you know, leading an organization of over 6,000 members of staff, where we have had huge complaints from Black staff about how they have been treated, and we have been working really hard over the last 18 months to really change up our policies and everything. And investigate every single complaint that we had from Black staff and address all of those issues. The organization is on a journey, and people need to understand it's not going to change overnight. Changing a culture of like huge conglomerates and even like government. I mean, did you not see Matt Hancock stutter over his words when he was asked about how many Black people are in his cabinet? You know, he couldn't even. He can't. But right. And then when he said who they were, I was just like, are you kidding me? Right. Well, where is the representation? You all went to Oxford and Cambridge. You're all from the elite. So you know, that's the other thing as well. Is making sure that you have a really good, you know, who represents us in government at this moment in time. We elect a lot of ordinary people through as MPs and as local councillors, but you know, the government of today does not look like the country of today.
Well, based on something Poku said earlier, I'm not sure if I heard it right, if it's right. He said 4% of the UK are BAME, so Black.
Asian minority ethnic.
Yeah, that's 4%. So, you know,
how much?
4%. I'm not sure if I heard that right.
No. No. Listen, here in Bristol. So let me just give you the statistics for Bristol. Okay. So in Bristol, BAME communities are 16% at the last census. 16%. And okay. In between the last 10 years, we got a feeling we could easily say we're about maybe 20%. 18 here in Bristol, okay. And then it goes up to like 33-34% for young people under the age of 15. Okay, so okay. We are fast. We're just behind Birmingham, which is fast becoming the Black majority. It will be Black and Asians who will be the majority in the city of Birmingham. So I always say to people, ignore Black, Asian, and minority ethnic people at your peril, you know, because actually we're the ones who are going to make up nearly a third of the city over the next 10, 15, 20 years. So we've got to get our act together and ensure that we are leveling the playing field and ensuring that our children get the access that have been denied us.
Okay, that sort of touches my point, because I was going to say, if right now we are a minority of the UK, you know, how do you force something like the parliament to embrace more leaders who are of colored, of different backgrounds, of colored
Okay, so it has kind of the initiatives that we have here in Bristol and in London. Obviously, we have Stepping Up, because we have a Stepping Up leadership program. I brought in that program nearly 3 years ago. So far, we've had nearly 150 Black, Asian, minority ethnic, some disabled, and women who have gone through that program. And we set up that program specifically because there is a lack of Black people in leadership positions, whether that's on non-exec committees, whether that's on public sector boards, etc. And it's making the case. The data doesn't lie, okay? The data doesn't lie. You can't say to me that you running a FTSE 100 company that is delivering X amount of services to a vast majority, a proportion of your users are Black, and then your organization is not representative. I know that there are a lot of global companies right now. They're basically saying, you got to get with the program. They do business with Africa, with Asia, etc. So their organization has to be kind of you have to be representative. You can't have just white people, you know, what am I going to do? Bring in a translator to actually deal with it? No, you've got to employ a diverse group of individuals. So there, remember, you've got legislation. We've got the Race Relations Act that is in place that enables us to take positive action to address our underrepresentation. And it's the right thing to do. You know, that it's not as if they don't know, it's morally the right thing to do. You know, why is it? Ask yourself the question, why is it that COVID has impacted our communities? Where were we? In the lower level frontline jobs and services. And this has been going on forever. If you look, we haven't got all day, but if you look at the history of America, and I watched the documentary on Black Wall Street the other day, and around in Tulsa, and what the state did to burn it all down. So we need to know ourselves, know our history, know that we have the tools and legislation in place to be able to make a difference, and use the data. The data never lies. The data never lies. And as my daughter said, next thing you do is you just tell them, we're not spending any more money with you. I'll give you an example. The NFL chief exec came on TV last week and said 75% of my NFL players are Black. And my first thought as he was saying that was, and what if that 75% said to you tomorrow, we no longer want to work for we're all resigning, and we're gonna start our own kind of football league? They'd be dead. It wouldn't work, because they rely on Black people. It's Black people who make the NFL what it is: basketball, football, you know. So yeah, for many of them, it's going to also be the bottom. It's also going to be the bottom line. But I think we can take the power. It's about taking back the power, take back some of that control, and use the tools that we have, legislation and everything else, and policy, to right the wrongs. And that's what I've been doing in Bristol. You know, I changed the FGM policy because it was disproportionately impacting Somali families unnecessarily. And I said, our policy is racist, change it. We changed it. And now hardly anybody gets hauled in front of the police, and, you know, kind of all the little isms that were going on with that policy. But that's what happens if you don't have diversity of thought, you just get kind of certain policies that are written in such a way that they actually do us a disservice.
Because you do believe anti-racist society is possible, at some point, not now, but later on.
I hope so. I do hope so. I've always said in my lifetime.
In your lifetime?
In my lifetime, I would want to see it. But what I'm saying is, it's you guys. You're the ones. Yeah, and I don't think it will be ever totally free, because come on, let's be realistic now. But I think the vast majority, you know, and we also have to think about the different nuances. We're here in the UK in a little bubble. You know, I'm born in England, Jamaican background. Okay, many of you guys had the privilege. I envy those of you who were brought up in Jamaica or brought up in the Caribbean and brought up in Africa, because you know what it's like to be not discriminated against, unless you add in the colorism, because that's the whole nother debate that you need to have, because that also plays itself out in Asia and Africa and the Caribbean also. So, you know, it's dealing with all of those little nuances. So what's happening here for us in the UK and what's happening in the USA, it's different. It's different. So Jamaica, they're not even going to, it's not an issue for them because it's Jamaica. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. It's a different issue in Ghana or Nigeria or Sierra Leone, because it's a different. So yeah, so many different kind of nuances. But we also have to look to Africa as well, and the Caribbean and others, because we need our allies, Black, white, global.
Yeah, guys, we're coming to an end now. We're running out of time.
Sorry, I've gone over. I don't even think I finished saying but what I will do, what I really would like to do is I'm going to send some information to Poku, to Babbasa, to outlining the work that we're doing on developing a global manifesto. And we really want some young people to be engaged in that. We'll be looking at leadership, mental health and well-being, criminal justice, education, and what my daughter always says, it's the economy, stupid, right? It's money. Yeah, it's the economy. So we also need to think about how, because remember, we don't get access to banks, turn us down. You know, it's like there's this inbuilt bias 100% of the time. You know, I've been reading some stories of some amazing Black women and men who have businesses, and the crushing stories of how they are treated, how they're spoken to, how they don't get the access that it easily comes so easily for white people. So yeah, there is a lot to unpack, and it's not going to happen overnight. But do you know something? As I said, the genie's out the bottle and he ain't going back in. And yeah, I applaud the work that you guys are doing, and yeah, I'll engage you in everything, try and engage you in things that you feel are important for you here in this city. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. That was really good, and I just want to thank all of you guys for coming and talking. It's really good. So let's have a round of applause for everyone who was involved today.
Thank you. It's lovely to meet you all, actually. Really nice to meet you. And hopefully I'll get a chance to meet you guys when lockdown lockdown is ended. Okay. But thank you all very much for having me on the program, and happy to come back anytime and kind of talk to you guys on other issues, or put you in contact with other organizations and individuals who I think you might find really useful to speak to. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. So I just want to say thank you everyone for watching. Please make sure to follow and to subscribe to Babbasa's channel, please. And keep the discussion going by commenting your opinions on Facebook and Twitter, which is @Babbasa Hub. So yeah. And if you're looking for guidance with your career, or you just want someone to talk to, please contact Babbasa. You could email them or call them. So we'll be back next week, the same place at the same time. So, and the question will be, does school work? So that could be really interesting. And please, can you guys support us by donating to Babbasa's Beyond COVID appeal? Because it just means that we can keep making this show and like amplifying young voices. So thank you everyone for everything today.